Hello! Today we're going to be doing a Behringer Synths tier list. So if you're wondering what a tier list is, I'm wondering why you're wondering what a tier list is, but it's basically a ranking system. You take your favorite items and you put them towards the top with the S. You take your least favorite items and you put them towards the D. Let's just jump straight in. I will be ranking these synths by using my not patented 3-step process. I will be factoring in each synth's idea, design, and value. Let's jump right in. So the first synth we've got here is the ARP 2600 clone. This one is what I like to call a classic Behringer clone. What do I mean by a classic Behringer clone? Well, what I mean by this is when Behringer clones an actual hard to get expensive synth. I like it when Behringer clones weird, rare, expensive stuff versus already readily available for cheap stuff because it actually gives it a purpose and a point versus just being a weird competitor on the market to something that already exists at even a similar price point. What I like about this one is that the original ARP 2600 is very expensive and very hard to come by. And also, as we can see here, the re-release is actually quite expensive. Now, I'm sure this version is going to be a much higher quality synthesizer, but when it comes to Behringer, quality is not really something you're worrying about. That's why I don't have it in my 3 things that I'm ranking them. Number 2 for this one is design. I think it does a pretty good job. I think the lights on the faders are a little bit much. It looks a bit Christmassy, but overall it looks pretty good, and I like that they at least put in the effort to make something light up and be kind of neat. Also, again, already kind of discussed, the value proposition is very high here. I'm going to put this one in A. Next up is the Behringer Cat. This is another classic Behringer synth clone. This one is modeled after the Cat by Octave. It's a weird, funky old synth that is rare and expensive and hard to come by. Also, the design on this one, they kind of nailed. It's probably one of the coolest looking ones out of the bunch. It honestly looks really cool. And it's got the cat. Can't forget the cat. And also the value, they just recently price dropped these, and at $200, you're not getting a better synth. You're not even getting an A synth for $200. Good luck finding an A synth. So it might be a little bit early, but we're giving it a S. It's getting a S. Next up is the Behringer Crave. This one is a clone of the Moog Mother 32. This one I kind of have mixed feelings about a bit. It's competing with the Mother 32 that's still currently on the market, but it is kind of marked down by quite a bit, so it is still kind of a relevant option. Don't have too much to say about it. I'll put it in C for Crave. Next up we have the DeepMind 12 and the DeepMind 6. I'll rate these at the same time because I don't think the differences are that notable. This one is an original Behringer design, I guess. It is very obviously modeled somewhat after the Juno series by Roland, but they do definitely put their own spin on it, and it is pretty neat. The design on this one to me is kind of bland. I don't like how the wood is kind of oddly red, but the value is pretty good. I'll put them in B. Why not? Put them in B. Next up is the K2. This one's modeled off the Korg MS-20 and honestly kind of looks the part, which is cool. This one's another really tasty one from Behringer, similar to the Cat. I really like the idea of this one, and then again the $200 price point is just kind of killer a bit. So yeah, unfortunately enough, we do have another S tier. Well, bam. Next up is the Model D. The idea is kind of boring. I feel like we've had the Model D done over and over again by a million companies. Also, the design of it, the buttons kind of look off, the colors are off, the D doesn't really look like anything. Overall, just the design of this isn't that appealing to me, and also it should have gotten a price cut in my opinion, and it didn't, which is kind of odd. So this one's gonna go into, is it our first D? D for D, Model D? Okay, it's kind of meant to be. Okay, this one's honestly kind of a banger one, the Mono Poly. This is honestly a really cool idea. The original Mono Poly is honestly a really tasty and pretty underrated synth. So to re-release it is, in my opinion, pretty cool. Also, they nailed the design and somehow were able to actually call it the Mono Poly. I guess you can't trademark the word monopoly, and it's not stylized enough to be a separate trademark. So also the value, not too bad. This one also got a recent price cut, and at $600, can't really go wrong at all. So yeah, this one's gonna kind of snuggle up in A a bit. Next up, the MS-1. I've never been that big of a fan of the MS-1, but it is a pretty tasty old Roland, and the design pretty much looks exactly like the actual Roland, so I guess that's 10 out of 10 on that. And the value, not too bad. I know you can pick these up used for like kind of nothing, and even then $389 It's definitely way cheaper than the original Roland SH-101. So yeah, this one's definitely going to be a B. The Neutron. This one's honestly pretty tasty. Another actual original design from Behringer is something that's definitely right up all of our alleys. And I think it's a synth we can all kind of get behind. It's honestly really cool. The design is a bit red, but it's at least somewhat striking and unique. It's at least not obscenely ugly in any sort of way. It's just kind of red. And also the value is pretty decent. In the Eurorack world, especially anything with that sort of size patch bay going on is going to be quite expensive. And for $350, I think this is one of the ones that makes sense why I didn't get a price cut. Definitely going to be an A here. So we got another ARP clone here, the ARP Odyssey. This one just kind of doesn't really do it for me. I can see why Behringer would want to make a clone of it, but there's already readily available official Odysseys for pretty decent prices. So unfortunately, why would I ever get the Behringer when I could just get the original used? So it's just going to go into D. Now the Model D I might be a hater, but the Poly D I can kind of get behind. Taking the Model D as your starting point and then upgrading it, giving it polyphony, giving it more features is the kind of thing that I can really respect and actually enjoy and be interested by. Also, it actually looks like the Model D. It's actually got the wood with the separate panel. It actually pops up out of the thingy. And for the price, $600 compared to like the $5,000 the original Model D, is definitely something I can get behind. I'll give this one a B. Okay, I mean, as you can see, I'm honestly kind of a sucker for these little thin and wide little module things that they've been making. So you know I'm going to like the Pro 1. Aside from the wood, it basically looks exactly the same as the original Pro 1, which is really cool. So that's definitely 10 points there. And the value, unfortunately, didn't get a price cut to $200. But then again, this is honestly one of the cooler ones, so you can't be a hater on this one. Definitely a strong A going on right here. So for their TB303 clone, the idea is kind of a null. I feel like there's a million people doing TB303 clones. Everybody's freaking doing. Even Donner is getting in, like Donner. Who even knows what Donner is, and they're doing a TB303 clone. So the idea is kind of got to be a 0. But the design, it looks right. I don't know how you're supposed to screw up a TB303 clone. Also, it comes in like literally every color. So like if you don't like it, just get a different color. But the value, this is I think the cheapest thing Behringer makes. So it's got to be a plus 10 points for the value proposition. So I'll give it a B for TB303. Alright, this one's honestly kind of fire, and I honestly keep forgetting this one exists. The clone of their Roland vocoder. This one, the idea is honestly pretty fire. The original vocoder is honestly pretty expensive and pretty hard to come by. So to clone one, honestly can get behind that. The design looks just right. I mean, could be higher quality or whatever, but that's literally just Behringer. I mean, at least the wood's not like randomly red. It's honestly looking kind of good. And the value, $500, is a little pricey, but it is the only vocoder thingy that they make. So you can't get up in arms about the price really when it's so kind of only of its kind that they make and sell. So I'll give it another B. And last but not least, the Wasp. This one's based off the EDP Wasp, which is similar to the Cat, in which that it's a randomly expensive, rare $2,000 sort of synth going on. And similar to the Pro 1, how it just kind of slides into this little modular format thing that they've got going on. And for the value, it's one of their cheapest ones, so definitely a big fan of that. And yeah, we got another S. So yeah, that's my tier list. Hopefully you agree, hopefully you don't agree, and make a comment about how I'm wrong and boost my algorithm thingy. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, guys. Yeah.